just to clear everything away, do we have permission to use this video for a school project and record you?
Of course.
Great, thank you very much.
Clear away the sharp objects that are out in the open. But it is pertinent to the job. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So.
Actually, do you think you could take us around this table, just, what?
Sure. To show you what's what?
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Absolutely. Well, the table is the center of all activity, but not everything, obviously not everything happens at the same time. We tend to do cutting and prepping a lot of things here. This end I do a lot more, as one could see by looking at the holes in here, a lot more pounding of things.
Gotcha.
So earlier I was making a couple more of these little card sleeves, so I take my mallet and various tools here. Over there's shipping station. Over there is the photo station. Behind you and on that wall are the felts. The felts on the walls are the thicker felts, 3mm. This is the almost perfectly organized 2mm felts. Well, actually, there's a lot. It's the pre-cut felts for pouches.
Wow.
And there's a lot of tools, not tools actually, pieces, bitsy pieces for making clutches and straps and so forth. These are just like the little pull tabs and strings, pull strings and so forth. Mostly leather, some vegan leather.
Amazing.
And rivets and so forth. All the little parts that go into making some bags, not all of them.
Okay.
Usually when you have something to do with straps.
Yeah.
And usually on the over in the shooting area, I'll have lots of bags that I know I want to take pictures of
Great.
eventually. Obviously, this is the Anna's favorite, the interfacing station. we have to. Actually, I work with the felt a lot after I make a bag. Let's see. Oh, hand me one of those, Sarah, over there. I'll show you. So as I'm making a bag, they oftentimes start out sort of curved in like this and curved like this, and over time they'll get back that way. But when I first send them out, I use the iron, open them up. I'll do this actually before they're completely finished, before the lining is back in there. The lining can pull right out.
Gotcha.
And I use those to kind of flatten the seams to give it a more square look, so that it's sort of like what a lot of pouches look like, but remains still somewhat of a
unique
little pillow.
Yeah.
So, but that's also a good place to put interfacing on. All the cottons are reinforced so that they sit properly inside the pouches, especially for the big bags. This is the radio, very important music. This is a pile. Currently all the big bags, which are a little bit on the back burner at the moment. I've got a vendor fair tomorrow, so I concentrate on smaller bags for theirs most of the time, although they've been kind of on the back burner for a while anyway. These are the 2mm felts, which are used most frequently. 1 machine, 2 machines, all the threads. Bathroom, and this is a storage closet over here where there's just a tiny bit more felt, which you may have seen on the way in. So this is actually fairly recent. This has been a storage closet for my photo stuff because I studied photography, but it became filled with toys and excess other things that need storage. As you can see, there's still some cars down there. Anyway, so the felts are stored here as well as the finished pieces.
Very cool. And where do you get all of your materials? Because you have to get them from different places, obviously, but
yes.
they seem very well sourced, I'd say.
Well, they are the felts. The wool felt comes all from Germany. The sheep are raised in Australia and New Zealand primarily. My next step is to try to figure out what's going on the sheep farms. That's sort of like a step I'd like to be able to take.
Really
but this is a one-woman show here.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure you'll probably ask me more questions about that later on. But so the sheep are raised there. The felt is sent to Germany. It's manufactured in a bunch of different wool mills that were traditionally wool mills 100 years ago, but they've now modernized them with big machines, and the machines are fabulous to look at. I look at them online in pictures. I finally found my factory where all my felt comes from, because I have a supplier in this country that gets it from there. And they haven't been. I mean, I'm sure they'd be willing to divulge if I asked directly, but maybe not. They might not want to, let me know what their supplier is, but I happen to figure it out.
Yeah.
So,
doing
That's
your
the
own
shipping station over there.
investigating?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I was just going to finish the tour, and there are the cottons, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a
Wow.
lot of stuff. There is a lot of stuff. in
Yeah.
here. The stuff is, the cottons are sourced from, there's some beautiful online cottons, fabric stores.
Yeah.
Really good independent fabric stores are not easily found. There's, big ones like Joann's and so forth.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I went in there initially and I was looking at batiks and bright cottons, quilting cottons, and I thought, oh, these are really nice. But they became sort of the same old stuff, and
Okay.
I felt, as you could see, that a lot were sourced in China, and they felt a little thinner than I wanted.
Oh yeah.
So I started finding some good sources. They also, the patterns that I was looking for bright patterns, but something a little funky. Here's a great example of a more modern.
Yeah, for sure.
I found an online store called Stash, which has a lot of small designers. In fact, there's a woman from Etsy who's from Canada. She makes bags and pouches too.
Cool.
She prints her own fabric and she makes her own. Fabric. So she prints. She hand block prints them, but she also designs in larger quantities, and she's had that made at a larger facility. But it's still a small time designer, a little bit of an indie designer, I guess, if you will, for fabric. And so anyway. So I source the cottons from a whole different places.
Wow.
I am not yet at that point where I can say, where I call them up and say, I need 100 yards of fabric. I still, as you can see, those are folds of, 1, 2, or 3 yards at a time.
Yep.
And we've probably used most of them, right, Anna? I think we've probably used 75% of the ones there at some point.
At least.
Yeah, and then they get reordered. I'm just kind of looking. They're sorted by color.
Yeah.
Oh, all the storage stuff, with the exception of these, they're pre-made. But most of the storage stuff is stuff built by my son Noah, former Barlow grad.
Wow.
And
that's incredible.
he took apart some beds and had extra wood from various shelves and so forth over there, and made great little storage.
So there are 2 crafters in the family.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of makers in this family.
Very
a lot
good.
of makers. We call ourselves makers actually. Because
Makers.
we make so many different things.
Got it.
Craft sort of implies that you've gone to Joann Fabrics and picked up
Oh yeah,
some
for sure.
supplies. But that's also completely normal for what I do. But
Yeah.
if you make bigger things, no one makes steel pans, so you don't necessarily call that crafting. So
Yeah,
makers
that's really good to know
is
actually.
a bigger term.
I like it, definitely.
So let's see what else.
You mentioned Etsy. I would love for you to expand on that, like how you got into having your products with Etsy, the sort of community that you've built there.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. That's a bit
Oh, yeah?
controversial. I'm looking over at Anna because she probably knows how I complain a lot about Etsy. Etsy started in, I think it was 2006.
Okay.
And it started as a community of, I'm going to use this term again, makers.
Got it?
That they were looking for a way to be a community and still start selling their works, what they do in an e-commerce fashion, so, selling it online.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and they really did build it as a community-minded effort, and I think it was a small group of people, and I think it's still a big secret as to how the name Etsy came about.
Oh yeah.
Over the years, Etsy got bigger, got
Yeah,
more
for
popular,
sure. Yes.
and changed. So people were ousted. There was a board of directors, and then eventually there was, a CEO. Then there was somebody on the current CEO is actually somebody who was formerly on the board. He came from, I think he had once worked for American Express. I can't remember where else he worked. But over the years, the push with Etsy has been to be bigger and to be a little bit more like Amazon and eBay.
Which makes it hard.
It makes it very hard.
Yeah, for sure.
So my sister started with Etsy, I think, in 2011.
Okay.
She is a super seller. She's got 55 or 56,000 sales on Etsy.
Oh wow.
And she remembers the old days, although she was in the middle of a change when she arrived on the scene as well. And I think sometime around 2013 or so, I can't remember the exact years, but they did start reaching out to investors. They eventually went out for they went public. They went out for stock options, and once you do that, then
It really changes the game.
it changes the game a lot.
Definitely.
When you go for that the IPO, the initial public offering,
Yeah.
you suddenly now have, on the one hand, your Etsy shops that you're trying to help them build their businesses, and on the other hand, you're trying to answer to your investors.
For sure.
When Etsy first did that, they said that they were trying to reach out to people who were like-minded with the original group.
Yeah.
But that's kind of a hard thing to do, and it kind of gets away from you. So,
Definitely.
but to step back to your question, the original community of people, I feel like when I first got on, there were still normal forums like there had been. There was still support from people I knew, especially my sister. Tremendous
When did you
advice.
start with Etsy?
I started in 2016, towards the
Okay,
end, so
great.
September.
Yeah.
And in 2016, that was a couple of years after I'd gotten the sewing machines and really been working on bags. I've been sewing my whole life since I was a girl.
Yeah.
And then I just started making bags. And I had these ideas, and it took a couple of years to kind of shape the ideas and test the bags with a couple friends, and I tested a couple myself. And I had some ideas, and I had more ideas, and then it just kind of, it's like a growing tree, this group of ideas branches off on this side and that on that side, and you have to bring it all together, and you
Yeah.
have to have a little bit, when it becomes a business, it should be more cohesive.
Definitely.
Especially when it's a one-woman show, one and partial two-women show. There's just so many hats that you wear when you do this.
Yeah.
So I think I've reined in a little bit more of the artsy side and gotten a little more practical. What do people like? And trying to keep the creative thing flowing. Just it's a little bit more minimal than it used to be, or than my original intentions.
Yeah.
But the Etsy community in general, the original Etsy sellers, I find fantastic. And there are still groups, Facebook groups, and mostly more Instagram groups now, where you can reach out to them. I think we reach out to each other on Instagram, we message a lot.
Nice.
And, oh, that's a great idea, love this, we support each other. Sometimes, we show something we purchased from someone else. I definitely purchase a lot of things in this shop from other Etsy sellers.
Oh, brilliant.
Almost all the leather over there comes from an Etsy seller who is, she's in Europe, but she's buying these from an Italian tannery. And then
Probably the good stuff.
yeah, it is the good stuff. Actually, I just had somebody on Etsy contact me the other day who said, I just bought from the shop and these straps feel like plastic, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
So she sounded a little frantic, but
Yeah.
I started talking to her and kind of calmed her down, and I said, no, I think just at first they just feel stiff, and you probably
for
have
sure.
seen some other straps that maybe were softer and worn. She was really nice in the end. It was just kind of an interesting thing where I was just baffled by her worry that she'd gotten ripped off. She thought so. So anyway, but yeah, I think that overall Etsy's been good for me. I've learned a lot from the idea of how to present yourself online, how to create a shop that looks good,
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
appealing, and it's just trial and error,
Yeah.
So I veered off from the question you were asking
No,
about the
I think
community.
you answered that perfectly. No, you've actually brought up some good points. Did you like when you were initially starting to think about Etsy, did you sort of plan a business model? Like, how did you get your head wrapped around the business side of things?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. It was, in fact, that was the point where I was saying, I was sort of transitioning from the kind of, there was the creative side that said, okay, you gotta have, the idea that you start with has to be creative, but
Yeah.
then how do you bring it to the table and make it a business?
Yeah, definitely.
And so I sat down and I kind of bounced some of this off of my husband because he's in business, but I sort of, stepped back. I'm like, I gotta do it my way. And he's like, totally fine. The business plan that I had, the business model was more about like what materials do I want to work with? how much do I want to expand? How can I invest more of my time and less of my money
Yeah.
in materials? So now, of course, now we're well into it here with the leather and the numbers. They got kind of high because the felt is actually kind of expensive.
Yeah.
But initially the idea was, let's see what we can do with my time. Let's invest my time. Let's gain experience. Let's figure out a way in. And the business plan kind of evolves over time. Like you just kind of throw yourself out there. You ask someone else. My sister was Nick and the Newfie. That's her business name.
Cool.
Nicola. She was a great model for me. She was actually probably a big part of my inspiration for like, can I do that with something else? Can I do that? And I decided I could. It was just going to be very different. So I guess the first challenge I had was I really wanted to make big bags. I really wanted to make a nice big shoulder bag or a tote bag or a crossbody bag and sell those. And I realized that people don't know me, and that's a very expensive item. So you can't just throw that out there and expect everyone to see you, because when you're a shop for the first time, you have no followers, so it's very hard to get seen. When I started in 2016, I believe there were about 1.6 million shops. That grew to somewhere around that range, and that grew to 1.9 million about a year ago, and now it's 2.1 million or 2.2. And those are the active sellers. Those are people who have actually sold at least something over the course of the year. And you can find your rank on Etsy. There's ways to go and find out how successful you are. And I was very happy to know I was like around 100,000, which is not bad considering it's over 2 million shops.
That's great considering the massive numbers.
Well, yeah, but I think a lot of the shops at the other end of it, the closer to up in the millions, they're shops that it's either they can't devote all their time. It may be somewhat of a hobby. I think initially Etsy was very much of a hobby place. People just want to make a little extra cash, and hey, I love to knit, or I love to sew, or I antique shop, and then you sell something vintage.
Yeah.
So the business plan kind of evolved over time. I had to every so often I have to step back and say, okay, what can I do now to actually make a sale? What can I do to better this? And the first big step after the idea and after the layout of the shop, which is really kind of, there's a lot of little decisions for your business plan that involve just opening a shop, but you kind of throw your idea out there, see where you go with it. I had a couple sales, but I realized, the people are not going to take a chance on it. Like, they started liking things right away, but they're not going to spend that much money.
Yeah, so how do you get them to?
So that was the first big, change to the business plan, where I said, I got to do something small. And I was talking to this with my sister, and she said, well, have you thought about pouches? Of course I hadn't thought about pouches because I would shop for pouches online, but she'd seen pouches everywhere. She'd seen them at markets. And I thought, oh, sure. And then she said, but you've got to come up with something that's different. I said, well, the felt is different, which kind of is the case, but there are other felt bag makers out there. And so I started embroidering them, and it was a freestyle thing. And one really important element to my business plan was to always constantly try to find something that is really my niche. What is my corner of them? I want to say corner of the market. It's the corner of the market, but what is also creative? What pulls in something
feeds your artistic soul.
Exactly. Thank you. Feeds the artistic soul. Makes me really think about things. And then you just have to keep doing that over and over. So then you have to reinvent yourself a lot. I think when you unless something just takes off and you take off with one model of something, then maybe you don't really have to reinvent as much as you have to adapt.
Yeah.
And I did find that, like when I look at, of course I spend a ton of time looking at other bag makers and other shops in general, like how do they present, how do they photograph. One of my strategies was, of course, as a photographer, my photography is not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but as a photographer, I did understand more than what I saw a lot of shops were doing out there. I experimented with different backgrounds and still working on the modeling because it's funny because I don't really know, I'm not a fashion photographer, I'm not a model photographer, so I have to always think, what looks good here?
Definitely.
What am I doing wrong? And that's another thing. That's another part of your business plan is I did write these things down. I have a book up there that's like all my little ideas and drawings and
Really great.
thoughts. Part of my business plan was not to expand out too quickly, not to let too many ideas take over. It was really kind of a list of sort of goals that I had. Another part of my business plan was to have a goal every year, like to constantly, I'm at 200 sales, let's see how quickly we can get to 300. And getting to 100 sales was like, molasses. Getting from 100 to 200 was slow, but we got there. But I just reached 700 sales.
Wow.
Sometime shortly after or around Christmas, and now I'm already like, when am I going to get to 800? I'm halfway there.
Yeah.
And in this kind of slow season now, although Mother's Day kind of picks up. So business plan, what is, when you have Etsy, you have this nice little framework already there. You have a template. You have to put your photos into it. Right now, the next step in my business plan is probably going to be to get my own website.
Oh, very cool.
Continue to let Etsy support me in the best way that it can.
Yeah.
Usually it's a seasonal thing for me because there's 2.1 million shops, because sales flow way down when you don't have a holiday.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's my, don't know who it is, but it could be Noah. Hold on, I better check.
It's Noah.
Then I better send him he needs my ink number. What is the ink again? Sorry.
Don't worry about it.
288.
Sarah, do you know how much storage you have on this? Because we're at 21 minutes, but like
I have a
nothing has
lot.
come up. Okay.
Okay. And plus, you can send it to my computer and then just delete it right away. If that would help things.
I just want to make sure we don't run out.
Anna,
So
thank
I
you
don't
so
feel
much.
I feel like I'm over here like keeping the table between us. And it's like, I'm afraid of my interviewers. Not at all, not at all.
This is
So-
the most flattering angle.
That's the most flattering angle?
That's better.
Great, that's really nice.
It's
So,
better.
yeah, standing underneath the light too.
I can adjust it. Don't worry. I've been
Sarah, do
I've
you
been
have any
making sure it's
burning
not really
questions?
overexposed.
What do you, oh, the fairs.
Oh yeah, we wanted to know about your fairs.
So that was also part of the business plan.
Oh right, keep
Again-
trucking through.
Again, yeah, trucking through that business plan. I feel like the Etsy thing is international, and I was really excited when I got my first international sale. I mean, I was just like,
That's
through the
awesome.
roof, yeah.
What was the country?
it was Canada.
See, I had an inkling it might be Canada.
Yeah, and
Love
I
Canada.
have had a fair number of sales at Canada, but also to the UK, one to Brazil. That's it for
Wow,
South America.
that's
Nothing in Central
awesome.
America yet. And let's see, one to Japan,
Wow.
couple
very cool.
to New Zealand, one to Australia. They were bigger things. Germany only once or twice. I can't remember. France a few times. All the Scandinavian countries except Denmark.
We'll get
Yeah, so
Denmark.
it's really
We'll
exciting.
get
It's, not Italy though. There's a lot of felt bag makers in Italy, and there's a lot of felt crafters or felt makers
really?
in Germany,
Yeah.
which is where the product comes from, obviously. But they're mostly iPhone sleeves and tech accessories,
Interesting.
and there are some bags, but they tend to be more, sleeves and zipper pouches for a computer and so forth, or a tablet. Let's see, where were we going to go? Oh yeah, so that was part of the one of the goals was going for that first international sale. Oh,
great.
a lot to the Netherlands,
Huh.
and one to Belgium.
I like that.
So yeah, it's
That's
exciting.
really cool. It's kind of like a piece of you is all over the globe.
Yeah, I actually want to do one of those silly things like you see in restaurants with a map, where they
I
say,
think those are
"What
actually
pin where
so
you're from?"
cute.
I want to put a pin where all my bags are.
I
Because
like that.
it's kind of fun to think about something walking downtown Amsterdam or something, I want to run into it. I want to go to Amsterdam and run into it.
Yeah.
So the craft fairs, that was the local side. That was exactly the opposite. And the craft fairs serve several purposes. big part of the business plan. Big part. In fact, this was like something where I remember my sister texted me, "Oh, by the way, don't forget about craft fairs." I'm like, I know. I know. She does the Union Square Market every year
Oh yeah,
during
that's
the holiday season. Have you been there?
Yes.
It is fun.
It is really
It is
fun.
yeah, and it's very crowded. Like you're gonna get to
Oh,
the market,
for
you know.
sure.
And
And everyone
everyone's
has,
really
like,
crowded.
Just boiling hot chocolate in their hands.
Right. Or they have those waffles, or
Yeah.
the crepes.
The
Yeah.
Reading winter one?
The what?
The
No,
Reading.
this is the Union Square in New York City.
Oh.
That one's about 5 weeks long, and Nicola's been
Oh
there
yeah,
for
it does
years.
run for a
yeah,
while. I
yeah.
forgot that.
And the booths cost something like $18,000 for the time period. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So you have to really make big money. Yeah,
Oh,
and it's
my
hard.
goodness.
It's cold, even though you've got everybody's got little space heaters at their feet, but it's cold, and
Yeah,
it
no,
takes
definitely.
a whole day to set up.
Do you have to buy one for the entire time, or can you do like a couple days?
No, you have to buy it the whole time. You can share a booth with somebody, but then somebody has to still be there the whole time.
It's still, a setup and then,
And
unpacking.
$9,000.
Right, and you
per
have
person.
the setup is really like
Oh,
you get
wow.
an area and you have to come with the lumber and everything. Like I do outdoor fairs with a pre-made tent that I ordered online, and it just like whoop, you just put it
It's
up.
up, yeah.
But that is a big part of the business plan because, as I said, there's several reasons for it. You attract local customers, and you get to meet your local community, and then your community is giving back to you. You're giving back to the community in a way in that you're providing an opportunity for people to, Main Street shopping, and especially in places like Easton and Reading where there's really not a whole lot of stores in
for
existence.
sure.
It's nice to know that people can go to the fairs, and they get very crowded. It's really amazing. They love coming, and it's nice to see the same people. It's also, you give out your cards if you're selling online, whether it's Etsy or some other site, you have your own site, or whether you sell at a store, you're giving out your cards, and you see people.
Yeah.
Regular customers come back. I do have customers who come here every now and then. And my favorite time that somebody came, I have a number of customers that come here, other than Anna. She's a customer while she's
your
working, right?
favorite customer.
Yes, she's my favorite customer. I'm a barista too for her. I never thought I'd be a barista. Well, I thought, okay, I'm wearing the marketing and the photography and the maker and the designer, and I'll be the CEO and I'll be the shipper, the fulfillment, I guess that's what it's called. I'll be fulfillment. But a barista too?
I just
thought I
think
should hire someone to get me coffee.
You can.
Wait,
if
are you guys
teach me how
available to
make
get
it,
coffee?
If you teach me how to make coffee, I will make it.
Yeah,
I don't
none of
have
that
a problem
almond
with
milk
that.
stuff though. I like almond milk in some things. We just had a text message back and forth about milk and the impact of cows on the environment and climate change and so forth.
Oh my god.
Sarah is I'm unfortunately I really care about the environment, but Sarah is all the way there. You're vegan, right?
Yeah.
You are vegan.
Yeah.
Wow. How long have you been vegan?
Only like a few months, like 5 or something.
Wow.
That's
I'd
still
say
a
that's
long
pretty
time.
impressive, Sarah.
Yeah, I might make 5 hours, but I don't know if I can. This is not vegan, and I'm sure you know all. I have several friends who are vegan. In fact, when Max, our middle child, was little, like 2nd grade, he had a really good buddy whose mom was vegan, so he was vegan too. And I learned a lot. I did not understand the honey was not vegan because it comes from bees, and bees are animals.
That makes sense, yeah.
It totally makes sense, yeah.
You just
And
don't think about,
you
all the
don't.
creatures on the planet.
And it's interesting that we bring up the vegan thing because on Etsy all the time I see people advertising wool felt bags. They call them vegan bags. And I want to write, no, it's not vegan. Don't you understand? It's not vegan. So that's another part of the business plan is like how you market your wares. But to go back to the craft fairs, because I wanted to finish, it's the local community, it's that back and forth exchange that's really important. It's establishing customers who know that they can come back, they can come see you. It's a way to get your wares out. But a very, very big aspect of the craft fairs, for me, is that human contact.
Yeah.
Because,
that's so important.
like when Anna comes, she doesn't even know. I can be having a terrible day. I can be grumpy and grouchy, and she comes, I'm like, hi, let's get to work,
I can tell.
I'm sure on the video that's going to sound very crazy the way I did that just now, but it's true. There's something about some people are people.
Yeah.
A people person. Some people really love to be alone. Most people are somewhere in the middle.
For sure.
I'm definitely closer to the people end of the spectrum, as you
Yeah.
can tell. I'm sure, because I just, people get their energy from other people. So I find that when I go to a craft fair, that serves in this category of the human contact aspect of it. That serves the purpose of not just human interaction with people and talking about my wares. It does give me an opportunity to talk about it and think, oh wait, I don't know this about wool, or I don't know this about sheep.
Yeah.
Maybe I should learn more about how they're dyed or how they're made and so forth. Some customers really want to know everything about wool felt, or they'll say, do you felt this yourself? And then I have to explain, this is very smooth felt, it doesn't look like felted felt, and why. But the other side of it is it gives me an opportunity to have feedback, like direct feedback.
Yeah.
Now I know people are being polite when they're there, but I have had plenty of less than polite customers who come up. The famous one of the woman who kind of came up to a vendor there who was like, these zippers, they don't work. And I'm not kidding you, she took the bag. I hope she never sees this video. She took the bag, held it like this, and she couldn't get the zipper closed. Now look how I'm holding it. Honestly, I don't think that's necessary. She took it and she really scrunched it like this, and she came down to the table with a bunch of friends.
Ugh.
And it was a little bit like the clique, the leader of the pack. And she was like, well, this one has a terrible zipper. And then she goes to another one, this is better, but I want this size, and this doesn't have a good zipper. And it is true that these are not, like if you go to bag stores, there are really fantastic bag zippers out there that are really smooth and they're made out of metal. They're very expensive, I have found. So that's the other side of it. When you're a small business, you can't afford to buy the super high-end stuff, but
corporations can.
Yes, but people still expect you to, have the, the high-end quality product, but not
At the same time, you're still a person sitting at your booth, and
right.
you're watching someone manhandle your products.
That's right. 99% of the time, 99.9% of the time, customers are fantastic. But
That's
you
good to
still
hear.
get direct feedback when people sort of come and look and then move on. You
For
get
sure.
a sense. You even start to identify perhaps the customers. It's like you can see someone coming from a ways away, and you can almost guess if they're going to want to stop. No, there are different kinds of people that go to craft fairs. There are people that like to sort of loop around and look at everything and not stop. My attitude with people is, I'm in my own world. I'm going to be fussing with bags or putting on price tags or doing something so that I'm giving people their space. It's like walking into a small gift store. Do you remember that feeling when you walked in? You walk in and you could hear a pin drop, and you're creaking around the store and you want to look at things, but you don't want somebody in your face going, can I help you? This would look great on you. Let me just tell you, this looks, oh, I love this color on you. You don't want that.
I feel like there's a real balance to it.
There is.
Yeah, because people will engage with you when they want to be engaged. And they'll look around when they just want to look around.
Exactly. Yeah. So the craft fairs have been great. I wish I could do more. They're a lot of work.
Do you always go local, or have you been, very
so far
far
only
away?
local. Yeah, technically speaking, I can only sell in Connecticut. I only have a tax number for Connecticut. Yeah.
Interesting. I didn't even think about that component.
Yeah. I mean, I can sell wholesale to somebody. Like I sold wholesale to Nicola one year. The first year I was in business, she sold a bunch of my pouches in New York City. She couldn't keep them on her shelves. I mean, she could keep some, but she kept asking for more. I couldn't make them fast enough. I was very slow still at them. I had one machine, and if it gave me trouble, then I couldn't turn to another machine. So, but that was really fun to have them in New York City and my cards there. So I haven't done that since, though. That was a lot of work, because basically the shop itself took off enough for me, for my little production line here.
That's great.
So
that was before me, right?
That was before your time.
EA, before Anna.
Yeah, Anna's great, because here's an example of what Anna did yesterday. She has this nice little pile. I took the blue one. That was the first one. I have other things that I have to have go out today, and that's why I was kind of pushing you out the door, because I ran out of ink for my printer, and I accidentally bought the wrong kind of ink. I thought I had everything. I checked last week.
Yeah.
I check every now and then. So that's another thing, is you have to check your supplies. That's
For sure.
That's another one of the hats. You take the hats off. It's actually just all hats are the same. But she had this nice little pile that she made for me, so that then and this one too. They
Snaps for
come in
Anna.
stages. When she first started, she started as a model only, and then I guess.
Then I was just doing like cutting.
Yeah, last year you came infrequently, like not terribly regularly, but towards the end of the school year, I think, to do some cutting.
Yep.
And then you were gone over the summer, and then we decided, I said, okay, I didn't like that week by week, when are you going to come, or if you're going to come in a couple weeks. I said, we need to set up a regular time. So this year we did, 2 days a week, and, ahead of time if I have a big craft fair coming. Now I have a vendor fair tomorrow. I have a lot of stuff. Obviously I'm trying to work my way through piles over there. We tend to, Anna will come in and I'll ask her to prep this and that. And what's nice is at this stage, at first I taught her what I wanted for cutting. It's not like you have to teach someone how to cut, but you do have to teach them how to cut,
Yeah.
You have to learn the measurements, and we have them up on the wall there. And then she had never sewed, right? We'd never used a sewing machine, right? So we started with, do we start with labels or do we start with zippers? Labels. Okay, so,
zippers.
oh yeah, that's right. The first time she sat down at the machine, it was a label. So most of the labels, some of the labels get ironed on, but I like the sewn on look better. And
too, it's very
so
sleek.
she had a chance to practice just understanding the feel of the machine. I love the fact, as a small business owner, and as a woman too, it sometimes feels a little bit strange, like, is this... Sometimes I feel like I'm in a very traditional role because I'm sewing, and that's predominantly female.
Yeah.
If you look at Etsy, most of the people who are sewing, unless they're sewing with leather, most of them are women. Although if you go to YouTube and you're trying to learn something about leather, they're mostly guys.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
so interesting.
And they're very different from me. They're different looking. They look like they're ready to put on the plaid jacket and go outside and chop down a tree, or go check the traps or something. And it's very interesting. Or they have motorcycles. They're very hands-on people, and they're working with machines. And I'm so interested in that aspect of things that I would love to get, some real hands-on information from people like that. Somebody who's working with leather. That's the next step. The next step is also a bigger machine, but I've been kind of dragging my feet because it's an industrial machine, which I have one in the other room. I bought it used from a former Etsy seller. It's a 1942 Singer, an industrial Singer, which was used to make parachutes. Yeah, so
That's a pretty cool history.
yeah, yeah. But it's too fast for the pouches.
Yeah?
We need to put in what's called a servo motor to slow down the speed.
Gotcha.
Because when you're trying to sew hundreds of yards of parachutes or tents or whatever they were making, you have to have something that goes fast.
Oh,
Something
for
that's strong
sure.
that goes fast.
Yeah.
In my case, the pouches, and that's me, Lou, adding her comment. She's like, yes, I agree on all points above. I'm just happy to be around all these people. So, any questions I missed? Anything that you're thinking about, business plan wise, or
I mean,
challenges in the workplace?
yes, that
Yeah,
is
I think-
actually my last question.
I think you had mentioned challenges
Yeah.
in the emails.
Yes.
So I meant to go back and look at it and see what it was.
I just said something very brief about challenges. So
What
you've been
are the
great
challenges?
responding to my questions. Yeah, what are the challenges you face business-wise, maybe with your artistic method? And we wanted to...
Sometimes keeping the dog happy is my biggest challenge, actually. Making coffee properly has been a big challenge. No, there's been a lot of challenges. I think one of the words you also said initially, I think you used a common buzzword, something like female empowerment or the empowerment of women.
Yeah.
Because are you interviewing all women entrepreneurial business owners
that's-
in the local ones, right?
Yes, that is our
How
plan.
many are you interviewing, if I may ask?
We're gonna do 4, and then you are our 5th. But
Oh,
you're
cool.
you're our first, but you would be the 5th person. Yeah, 4 more people.
Okay, great. And so are they split between Easton and Reading, or?
We actually, you are our first person. You're a jumping off point. I was actually going to ask you after if you had any recommendations for some people to
yes.
talk to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, because, I mean, with 5, obviously, you can't do an even split, but we'd love to, have some
Right.
Easton, have some Reading.
I'm trying to remember, are you both from Reading?
We're both from Reading,
You
yeah.
are both from Reading. Okay, so you wouldn't know so many people in East. Well, I mean, you would know kids, but you might not. Be
Yeah,
familiar.
yeah.
Well, I would recommend a farm. I would recommend you go to Patty Pop. Actually, she's somebody
wow.
that I did my CSA with years ago, and now I'm just a great customer. But I love her farm. I love her attitude. I think she's been she's kind of inspiring too, because she's always tired, but she's got so much energy. She's sort of the Energizer Bunny. Challenges involve goes back to the people thing. One of the reasons I love craft fairs, if craft fairs weren't sort of so stressful with my life the way it is, I again, a little side bit is having a lot of work to do for my parents, who both had Alzheimer's, and now there's just my father.
Yeah.
And that has taken a chunk of my time, not
sure.
just managing affairs, but also going on weekends or taking them to doctor's appointments, but the distraction of it. And I still have Gus at home. And I do feel like as I get going, I'll have more time to devote to things. I did lose my mother last summer, unfortunately, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
obviously, yeah, me too. It's a long road, but I think that as time goes by, I have more time to devote to the business, and that makes me happy. That's a great way to fill that void a little bit.
Yeah.
My whole family's all entrepreneurs.
That's
My
amazing.
parents, my father was an architect, and he started his own business. And so I guess I should say my role models is really basically the Armster family. There's 4 of us kids, and my parents moved to Guilford, where I'm from, in 1968. I was 5, and he worked for an architectural firm in New Haven for a couple of years, and then he started to kind of branch out on his own. And once he did, in the early 70s, he was off and running. Built a lot of award-winning buildings. This is one of his. There's some leaks in the skylight, but that's because we have to replace the roof.
It's beautiful.
I have to make a few more pouches to for the roof, though. So, yeah, the house is pretty crazy. It's very interesting. There's a lot of different sides to it. So, but then he and my mom did this business for years, and then my sister and my 2 brothers all went to business for themselves. So one of my brothers is an architect, what they call design build company. So he and his wife are both architecture students from RISD, and they built their own business.
RISD's great.
Yeah, RISD's a great school, and in fact, a lot of their friends have been here from his class. He's 6 years younger. Then my other brother is in reclaimed lumber. He has a huge business. He has a big mill up in Springfield and another one up near Hartford. And then my sister, of course, has the Etsy business. She used to do tons of craft shows, and when Etsy came along, that seemed like sort of the perfect thing for her. She is now making a jump herself to a bigger version of an online site, which is exactly where I want to go. And I started to mention earlier that having Etsy as that support is great, but with 2 million shops, and with their algorithms for search engine, SEO, that's another part of the business.
Interesting.
As I've gotten into it, there's so many things to learn about marketing and about SEO being search engine optimization, and about how to get found and how to sell yourself. All of that becomes more into play once you kind of get up and running. Like, you think about marketing initially just by looking at what people might want to buy.
Definitely.
With what, and how do you marry that with what you make, and how do you create a corner for yourself, a niche for yourself, as I said earlier. But then every step of the way, in order to keep going, you kind of have to, like I said, you kind of have to reinvent certain things. So the challenges have been, again, this is all tying back into the question of what are the challenges. The challenges have been reinventing myself, or not myself, but a part of the business. Finding ways to make things efficient. Efficiency is key, because once you have a customer base, then you have to figure out how to make more money. Because I wasn't even making I wasn't even making minimum wage for a long time. In fact,
Wow.
I sometimes feel like Anna's looking at me going, I don't think you're even now making minimum wage. It depends. It depends on, it's really hard to say. It's still 2.5 years into the business officially. So
You're still finding your way.
I'm not too worried about that part of it
Yeah.
because it's a lot of investments. It's very and the front end of it is very investment heavy. But then the other challenges I think are also staying focused. That's a big thing for a single entrepreneur. Staying focused on the task at hand, staying focused on where you're going next, but also maintaining, you're fulfilling orders, you're doing a lot of day-to-day stuff, but you still have to step outside of your bubble and think big. You have to be able to step back and look at the whole picture and say, is this making sense, what I'm doing? And you just like all the big corporations out there, you've got to find a way to cut costs. But at least now you're not saying, I'm not firing people. It's so small, it's not, that's not the issue. The issue is just trying to figure out a way to make my time more efficient. So other than that, I find that people are very accepting of it, and I'm excited about building something out of nothing. That's, not nothing, but starting from square one, that's something I really love. And that challenge is definitely what keeps me going. I actually go to bed at night many, many nights, and I lay there and I start it's like the flood of ideas. How to add a flap, how to change this bag into that, how to change the design of the straps. If I have a problem in the shop during the day that I can't figure out, I'm still trying to work out the design of straps on this smaller crossbody bag, which is a new product. Or if I'm just trying to come up with a new product, I'll lay down in bed, think, I'm going to go to sleep. Oh, no, I'm not going to go to sleep. I have ideas. They come flooding in. And that's kind of fun. Yeah. So other than that, I think the challenges are, the financial stuff and the focus and keeping this place clean and dust free. And when it rains too much, every now and then we get some leaks. We've had the roof repaired, so I can't fix all this stuff until the roof is really repaired. Mostly it doesn't leak, but sometimes when the wind comes, something flaps up. So a challenge is like rushing up here in pouring rain and making sure nothing is on the table.
How have you been these last few days then?
It's been fine, actually.
That's
there
good
was
to hear.
The Heidi Armster sign over the bathroom door, which my husband made for me out of a piece of wood that came down in. I think that wood probably came from when we had a hurricane. A lot of trees were out. In fact, some of the shelving might come from that in here. And it was dripping right over there, and I had, as you can see, that pile underneath the table was, some of it was splashing, was getting wet, and I was actually up here at 2 a.m, like moving things over here. It was just like dampness, but had I left it, it might have gotten a little more
of course.
wet. Nothing's ever gotten ruined, and no tools have been ruined, and so I've been
That's
lucky.
good to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think that's all we need. Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you.
for this
Thank you.
interview.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And I wish you luck in this
Great.
project.
And I know you don't see yourself as well, I hope you see now that we find you all very inspiring.
Well, thank you.
It's amazing.
That's really nice. That's really nice to know. It is. It's funny because I studied photography and I went to art school and I have the degrees, and so I feel like, should I be doing photography? And the original decision was, like I said, not to invest too heavily initially to see how this works.
Yeah.
So photography equipment is more expensive than felt and cotton.
I hear you.
So and you can't. Well, you can sell it, but yeah, it's good. It's good for me. It keeps me active, and we'll see where it goes.